good afternoon, and welcome everyone to our closing keynote plenary, where students will take the driver's seat to share their reflections, realizations, and aspirations for the future of education. Before we get started, we'd like to share a brief video from Springdale Public Schools, where John Tyson Elementary School students created a video for us about their experiences building a school garden, what it taught them about goal setting, student agency, taking ownership, collaborating, creating a sense of belonging, and core tenets of student-centered learning. Cue to the video.
Hi, I'm Abby.
Hi, I'm Dixie.
Hi, I'm Rachel. Last spring, our school got the Captain Planet Foundation grant and we built a school garden.
After we built our new school garden, we noticed the children who use wheelchairs were not able to participate in our school garden.
It made us sad, so we learned to write a grant. We measured wheelchairs. We did research on elevated beds and grow bags to make sure our friends can use them.
And we learned to comparison shop.
We got the grant and we were so excited to help some of our tigers.
We assembled the bed during our East class.
Our friends will use these things when they work in the garden.
We showed our friend the things we got for her.
It made us all really happy.
Thanks, girls.
You're welcome! This project was really special because we gave her the chance to work in the garden and plant stuff. I loved how happy she was to be a gardener.
Helping a tiger made me so happy, and getting to be a part of the garden work made her so happy.
I loved to see her smile. It made my heart so happy. I was amazed that she had never worked in a garden, but now she can. This was a really special experience for all of us. We made a difference in someone's life.
And we will never forget that.
Thank you to the students at John Tyson Elementary School in Arkansas for sharing your experiences, making that video for us, and just reminding us of the importance to design learning experiences so all may grow. Now is the moment we've all been waiting for, the student panel. Today, we welcome students to take the stage to share their honest reflections about teaching and learning. It's important to listen to students so we may reflect, respond, and activate changes together with students collectively. These changes are needed for us to reimagine education. Today's session will be led and facilitated by Jemar Lee, a graduate of Iowa Big and a current senior at Morningside University. Welcome. Thanks to all the students for being with us today to share your wisdom. Jemar, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Susan, for the introduction, and good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you're at. And welcome to The Time Is Now. Students take the driver's seat to share reflections on the past to inform innovative, student-centered education transformation for the future. Our closing keynote today. As Susan did briefly note, my name is Jemar Lee. I'm an alumnus of Iowa Big and currently a senior at Morningside University in Sioux City, Iowa. Aside from academics, I serve as a fellow with Education Reimagined, working to bring learner-centered education to every young person across this country, along with an ambassador for the Future of School Foundation. As we're all aware, the symposium is a lot different this year, and I wish I could be in person with all of you, but nonetheless, I am honored and so excited to be able to once again facilitate today's closing keynote panel. I hope you have all had a great experience this far. I've heard lots of great conversations, seen lots of great things on social media, and so it seems like a lot of learning has been done, but we're not quite done yet. Today, we'll be hearing from 4 learners from 4 diverse XQ schools. They will introduce themselves here momentarily. Today, they will be sharing their experiences and what learnings they have had over the past 20 months and beyond that will allow others to experience an education that prepares our young people with the tools they'll need to succeed in life and make an imprint on this world. Our hopes are that you leave with a deeper sense of empathy regarding the challenges the students faced during the pandemic and still are facing, a realization of some of the key findings and best practices to inform you of the innovations that offer the most promise for our young leaders and changemakers. And finally, the panelists hope that you leave with insights and concrete strategies to share with your own schools and communities to catalyze education transformation at scale. Before we begin our panel discussion, as I noted, we have 4 students from 4 different XQ schools leading this work, and I would like for them to introduce themselves. I want to make everyone aware, though, that this panel was fully driven by young people. This is a truly learner-centered panel. What I mean by that is we're not just here elevating their voices on this virtual stage, but the design and hard work to make this happen today was done by the 4 of them. So without further ado, I will turn it over to them to introduce themselves, and we'll go ahead and start with Zoey.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be speaking with you all today. My name is Zoey Young. I'm a recent 2021 graduate of Iowa Big, like Jemar, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I'm now a current freshman at Lake Forest College, pursuing a bachelor's in science with a double major in biology and environmental science.
Hi, I'm Mark Holden. I'm a recent graduate from Ponaganset High School, and now I am a freshman at Washington and Lee University in Virginia. I am hoping to pursue a major in business.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniella Munoz. I attend Sky High. I am a future graduate of 2024 and hoping to become a social worker at Boston University.
Hello everyone. My name is Torin Hodgman and I am a senior at the Grand Rapids Public Museum High School. And I will be graduating next year, and I'm going to GRCC for my occupational therapy degree, assistant degree.
We have some rock star leaders with us today, so thank you each for introducing yourselves. Zoey, Mark, Daniella, and Torin all believe that a student's voice is important and necessary as we reimagine what education can be. Now, before we dive into each of their experiences and ideas, let's take a look at what a sampling of students are saying about education and their hope for the future. Just have a video playing momentarily.
Hi, my name is David Allen. I'm a sophomore at Chapel.
Hi, my name is Abigail. I'm a junior and I go to Reimagined.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a junior at Narragansett High School.
I want to get more women into STEM.
I want to make my mark through my music.
Uplifting the Black community.
Being able to provide mental health care for minors.
My dad, he's really immunocompromised, but at the same time, I'm not learning if I'm online. But if I get COVID at school and bring it home to him and he gets really sick, that would kind of be on me.
This is your money that your group is going to spend. You're going to take your dollars and tell us exactly how the money should be spread out, and something has to go into every single category.
The biggest problem that I've seen with a lot of public schools in particular is that there's a lack of resources.
Let's say you're a kid that is looking at engineering, there's no class that you can take for that. Or hey, I really like doing this, I want to take this class. We don't have that.
Something that I want from my school is to be more diverse in how they teach us.
We're in a completely new age that wasn't 2 years ago. So even right now, we just went through a cultural reset.
We should start investing and finding opportunities for students that don't want to go to college or it's not an option for them.
They say that they'll support every path, but they'll only invest in a few.
It's kind of hard to get into AP courses at my school because the guidance counselor changes so often.
Yeah.
It's hard to not take it personal.
We're spending 8 hours of our day and literally it's about curriculum. Let's get through it. You have 30, 50 minutes to plan this curriculum. Let's get through it. Not really learning.
The public school system is teaching you how to be a factory worker.
What I want, honestly, I want an opportunity.
Right, great video, and I think the word for me is that it's quite illuminating, and I hope it was for you as well. And this is a great model on how we can authentically engage students in the conversation to transform education. And for myself to hear the powerful ask these young people have across the United States for their education continues to inspire me as I was once in their place and still am advocating for similar changes. Some examples from the video that really resonated with me was the young people's desire to have access to more diverse options for their learning. They no longer wanted to be in a factory style education system, and that they are told that they will be supported by every path, but not every path has investment there for them. And so especially today, as we head into our panel and elevate the hopes that these 4 students have for their education, and for all young people, we will realize that our time is actually now to act. The learnings from today can be taken into action plans right after this call. It's not about what the months ahead, the 6 months, or the year ahead on what we can do. So this is a great segue into hearing from our panelists. Zoey, Mark, Daniella, and Torin, after watching this video, what stuck out to you? Was there something that another student said that resonated with you? And why so? And so I invite either of the 4 of you to kick us off.
I can start us off. So I think what really stuck out to me was the girl who said that she couldn't take classes that interested her, because I definitely hit that roadblock at my traditional high school. I kind of took all the possible science classes and electives that I could. So it was kind of just like that now what situation. Was I stuck taking classes that didn't interest me, making me lose my passion for learning? But then luckily at Iowa Big, I was able to break past that barrier and was able to express my passions through academia, which was an incredible experience.
For me, I think what struck out the most was when they were saying that they didn't want to be a factory worker. Back at Ponaganset High School, we had a counselor that was notorious for pushing people down one pathway. And luckily, there's so many fantastic teachers that also were well-rounded and different opportunities that you could take, that I found home with a very special person who told me that there was this fantastic school all the way in Virginia, and that I would be able to explore all these different types of opportunities. And that push from a teacher allowed me to do things that I wouldn't even imagine myself to do at this moment. And so I believe a school should push not to push the same agenda and to allow the individuals to really form in the school.
I think for me, what definitely struck out was the fact that students are now starting to realize what school is what traditional schools are providing for them and how they feel has definitely affected them and how they want a change and how they're standing up now. Definitely when coming to Sci-Hi, it was definitely a new start and a new beginning for me. And I just started realizing more of what I wanted and started pushing forward for that. And Sci-Hi has been a tremendous help with me with that.
For me, what stuck out in the video was talking about diverse curriculum, because I definitely remember curriculum that was just like, oh, you're going to study the homeless. It's like, okay, cool. We're all studying that. Okay. And then coming to this school, we had a teacher who was like, you're going to be studying about homeless, but there's so many different routes that you can take. Do you want to study about the LGBTQ plus community in the homeless, or do you want to study about the youth in the homeless? And it was just so many more options to actually learn about our community. So hearing that, I was like, yeah, I definitely remember that. And I wish that all the schools had all those options for students to take.
Well said, and thank you each for sharing. And I'm excited to hear more from you, and I presume the audience is as well. So we'll go ahead and kick off our panel and get to the substance of our discussion. I would like to talk about your thoughts on the needs learners from across the country may desire after an immense disruption to an education that many only know of or knew of. In other words, a traditional model of education. So my question for you is, what do you see students need after a year of distance learning? How do we move forward and address unfinished learning, mental health, and much more, and provide all students with a safe and healthy learning environment? What do you see as the big priorities for yourself and for your peers? And again, don't have to go in any certain order. Either of you can jump in at any time.
For me, I think compassion and understanding, especially from teachers and the guidance counselors, to understand that we all are going through different struggles and we all need different avenues and support systems. And so when you have someone that will look after you, even when you may be online or not present in a classroom, that can make the world a difference. And so for me personally, an example of this is I was struggling in one of my language classes, and I was able to find a time to meet at a late hour with the teacher to smooth over different ideas and components. And she took that extra step to help me understand. And for that, I am forever thankful. And just the action of being willing to do that goes a long way.
I'll go next. So I think definitely what students would need is some mental health. So I know definitely I have struggled with a really bad mental health, and it's gotten me a lot of different places. And when going to Sci-Hi, shout out to all the teachers. They welcomed me with open arms because I was a newcomer to everything, and definitely they would always look out for me and they would always show support. And if I was ever quiet, which you can ask them themselves, it's really rare for me to be quiet, they would always check up on me and ask me if I'm okay. And just having that support definitely made me want to go out and do more and just show them how my gratitude for them, and just telling them thank you for always keeping their back out and lending out a hand for me, because it has helped my mental health tremendously. And if students were to have that mental health and know that the teachers have their back, it can provide so much of a difference for them and make them feel so much more wanted.
I can go next. I definitely think that a priority needs to be fulfilling students' potential, because there was a dampen across the board regarding students and opportunity these past 2 years, which is heartbreaking. But as we transition back into a seemingly regular education, we need to be looking towards the future and looking at ways that we can keep students engaged and passionate about their own personal learning within a school environment.
To add on to what all my colleagues are saying, I would also say having students have a connection with their district, with because we are coming back from a pretty tough time for a lot of our students. So having that connection with the district, which would just be like, yeah, we see you, we hear you, and we want to engage with you. And it's not just like, oh yeah, here's our individual school and then here's our district. It's like very far gap. So it's that connection that, yes, we're here to serve you. We're here to be with you. And then having students have that connection with the districts, that way they feel heard and seen. And then students and teachers have a better relationship too, because it's just better all around.
Right. Those are all great answers. And Zoey, I'm going to pick on you, not for a bad reason, but you mentioned filling students' potential. And I'm curious if you can share with the audience from your experience how that may look or how they could do that or better do that, so say.
Yeah, I think that potential is kind of the big word that I stick with when I think of students and education, because there is a whole world out there for us, and that's what education is supposed to be preparing us for. But a lot of the time it kind of falls short, or students don't get to do what they want to do. So finding ways to keep students engaged and so that their passions are recognized and heard within an education system where they have the funds and the support system based on, instead of like doing it by themselves. I think that schools really need to prioritize letting their students follow their passions, because that does create potential. I know at Iowa Big, I was able to work on a project where I was learning animal husbandry and how to take care of birds, which you can't really do that at a traditional school, most likely. And that is what I want to do for a living. So it was really cool to be able to get that hands-on experience while still being in high school.
Thank you, Zoey. And Torin, to your point on building the pipeline for relationship among young people and district leaders. From my experience in the traditional system, this many times was done through surveys to kind of garner student feedback. Can you talk about how we can really build authentic relationships with the young people and the district leaders?
Yeah. I think that surveys are definitely the most commonly seen, and it's, yes, we hear you and we're taking your info, but it's what's happening next. The students don't know what's happening next because they're not engaged. They're not being asked, oh yeah, we want to take it, what you're saying, and take it further. There is no student engagement and student leadership in the district. So having district representatives like go into schools and just like hang out with students and just be like, yeah, we're the ones that make all the decisions for your schools. Or even we're gonna have like a month where students just get to come in and help out with stuff, like having in-person connections and having a face-to-face conversation with people, or Zoom yeah. So having that personal connection and having that engagement in student leadership and having steps made with students, that way students know what's happening. That's what I see.
Okay. Well, thank
If
you
you don't
both.
mind, I would like
Yeah,
to
please
actually
step
say
in.
something as well about
Yes, please do, Mark.
My school did a great job of letting the students get involved in community. We had a representative come in, we've had senators come in, and so being able to actually talk to these representatives was a fantastic way to not only get more involved in our local politics, but also to understand who these people are that are representing us and are supposed to be serving us. And so as an XQ school in Rhode Island, I feel that's one of the things that we should be most proud of is how much we've been politically, aware in many situations.
All right, thank you for saying that. And since the other three did answer, Danielle, I do just want to give room for you. Is there anything else you want to add before we go to the next question?
No, all good. You can go on to the next question.
All right. Well, the four of you, I appreciate your thoughts, perspectives, and insights about how we can help all learners across the country begin or continue to recover from crisis learning. It's kind of truly inspiring, especially for myself. I hope it is for the audience. And I presume it reassured the educators that they are on the right track and even illuminated new ideas for how they can do so. So to shift our conversation just a bit, all of you on the panel, including myself, went to schools that were part of the XQ community, where the ultimate goal was to develop XQ learners. With being a part of an XQ school where your learning experiences are grounded in XQ learner goals gives you hope for the future. And which of the XQ learner goals do you identify with the most and why? So I'll go ahead and read our 5 XQ learner goals and then invite you 4 to answer. The first is masters of all fundamental literacies. Second, holders of foundational knowledge. Third, generous collaborators for tough problems. Fourth, original thinkers for an uncertain world. And last, learners for life. So again, the question is, based off those 5 XQ learner goals, which of them gives you hope for the future? Doesn't have to just be one. And which of the XQ learner goals do you identify with the most and why?
I'll start. Sorry, Mark. I think what I definitely relate to is the generous collaborators for tough problems, because before going to Sci High, I went to a traditional school, and coming to Sci High and learning about projects and learning how to work with people, I definitely struggled, but I got used to it and started realizing that I do really good working with people. And since I'm very social, I do like to find out what are people's strengths, weaknesses, and also having a bunch of empathy with them and working together and getting something done really well. For example, last quarter we were working on a micro museum, and we were put in groups with a bunch of other people and definitely met new friends and definitely learned ways on how to work together as a team. And it definitely was a incredible learning experience, especially the ways of like seeing how much we work together and how much we really do care about how we want all of this to be an amazing project. And definitely I I agree with the generous collaborators for me, because coming from a traditional school and not being very used to projects, going there and seeing all that is something amazing, and I learned and will definitely continue to be using on a daily basis on having empathy and everything. And I definitely do relate to that because I love working with people, and yes.
I would say that I definitely find myself, I aligned and am currently aligning myself with the holders of foundational knowledge. Definitely when I was at Iowa Big, all three of my projects that I had over the 2 years were all science and environmental based, but they kind of pushed me and urged me to look at it from interdisciplinary approaches. Like, even if it was an ecological based project, I had to look at how English and sociology and psychology affected the ways that my project was working, whether that was with my group members or the project in and of itself, which I feel like has really helped me in every aspect of my life, not only now being a college student and seeing things in that way, but just with like friendships and collaborations all across the board, being able to look at things from different perspectives has been extremely helpful.
For me, I feel as though I resonate most for Learners for Life. I find myself involved in education inside and outside of school. And I think my XQ school, Ponaganset High School, really helped mend me to be that way. For example, I had my two advisors, Mr. Joyce and Ms. LaFerrier, and they had the best relationship. They argued like they were like a cute elderly couple. They would go back and forth and they would squabble, but Mr. Joyce would always be very honest. He would tell you what he thought and he gave you advice on how to improve and be better in the future. Ms. LaFerrier was more of emotional support. She taught you how to be confident, how to be able to go into an interview. And so together they really formed this relationship with their students to almost become a parent to them. They taught you everything that you would want to know. And they really strived to teach how education is not just in the classroom, but it's outside. And having this connection helped me realize the importance of education. And so for that, I'll again always be thankful. They're amazing. And so I'm a learner for life.
For myself, the learner goal that brings me the most hope for the future is the original thinkers for an uncertain world, because there's so much confirmation bias out there right now, and it's just getting stronger. So with original thinkers for an uncertain world, that's growing your critical thinking and like, okay, here's this side and then here's the opposing side. Like, how do I make sure that I'm listening to both while still making my own decision about what's happening? And I think that's going to be really important for every generation to come. And it's definitely the most powerful tool because, man, critical thinking, whew, if it were not for that, we would not be here. So then the two that I find myself tied between are generators, collaborators for tough problems, and holders of foundational knowledge, because the problems we tackle are huge and you have to know where it comes from, the origin of it, and how it affects community and how it affects your classmates. And then generous collaborators, just because it definitely takes more than one person to solve these. And you have to include people and you have to listen to people and collect stories and work with people.
All right, thank you. And so you all alluded to this slightly within that answer, but however, could you please share a bit about what your journey was to becoming an XQ learner? Zoey, you were part-time traditional high school, Iowa Big. Daniella, it sounded like you transferred in your freshman year. Can you guys speak to that? How was that transition? What was the learning? As it sounds like the learning was a lot different from the traditional model. So what had to happen inside you to be effective in that learning environment? Was it automatic? Was there support there? All of those things. Could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I can talk about the transition from traditional high school to Iowa Big because it was huge. I started Iowa Big my junior year, so I was pretty used to the traditional high school setting. And then all of a sudden, the second day of Big, I think, we had to pitch a project to the entire group of Iowa Big, of these people from different schools who I've never met before, and I've never pitched a project before or even thought of a project by myself. So it was terrifying, and it was honestly probably one of my favorite things I've ever done, because being put on the spot like that with these brand new people and collaborating with these people that you've never met before and then presenting it in front of new teachers, new people, some partners were there. It was exhilarating, to say the least. And the support system was insane. All the teachers at Iowa Big were just fantastic. And as I kept transitioning into Iowa Big, I started realizing that this was where I felt comfortable. That even though that they pushed me out of my comfort zone so hard on the first day, that somehow made me more comfortable being in that situation every single day, which was incredible.
I think definitely the transition for me, coming from middle school to high school, definitely through a rough year, was definitely hard to get used to, because before coming to Sci High, I definitely had a very bad past, and it was not good. And when going to the open house of Sci High, I started realizing that this school is really for me. I started realizing that I can be my true self without trying to hide myself, because I would always put a barrier on myself for a traditional school, not being my true self. And coming to Sci High, I realized that definitely I could be my true self. It was a crazy transition, because it was very amazing to see how well the students work together and how much they want everything to look well, to have all these new faces come in, and everything, like just seeing the collaboration and seeing how well the students bond with their students. It's crazy. I would have never gotten that at a traditional high school. And becoming an XQ learner, it bettered my world into something amazing, and I would not have changed it for anything else.
Daniella, I'm going to ask you to dig a little bit deeper. In your previous question, you talked about the shift. Zoe kind of talked to this as well, from coming from a traditional education system or conventional to project-based learning. And so this happens quite commonly for learners who step into learning environments that are doing things much different than the traditional system. Could you talk about what support it took for you to become effective? Was it automatic? And I only ask that because I was in a similar situation through my educational journey with Iowa Big, but it was automatic for me. It's what I needed, but that's not how it is for all learners. So any insight to help our audience kind of understand that would be appreciated.
I think it was automatic for me, if I'm being truly honest. Definitely my second day of being at Sci High, I was just ready for all the projects and basically just ready for everything, because it was a different environment. And definitely realizing the projects that they've made, I got inspired, and I was automatically ready and just ready to create all these projects and help out with anything that they needed.
Thank you for that.
I can say that it was definitely not automatic for me. Quite possibly the opposite. I would say about 2 weeks in to Iowa Big, I still didn't know what project-based learning meant, because I was just so confused. But the support that the teachers gave, they were like, so like, if you don't understand it, come to us, we will help you more. And my first project was developing a hydroponics, and I didn't even know what hydroponics was. So it was not automatic, and that's okay, because here I am today, you know.
Mark and Torin.
Yeah, for me, there wasn't a major difference between going from my middle school to my high school, because I feel as though it was still the same sort of teaching style, which was, you sat in the classroom and the teacher taught a subject and you get the homework assignment. So in that way, we were not a project based learning like Zoe or Danielle. However, what our school did that was different was we were very unified. And if you know Ponaganset High School, you know that we are all over the news for our unified team. And I think that really just speaks to the culture that's inside of our school. And that welcoming community really is what stands out in our school.
For me, and my transition into a XQ school, it was all of the hands-on learning. I was like, oh my gosh, schools can actually do hands-on learning and like it's a part of every class. Hold on now. This is awesome. Because before it would just be like, all right, we're in a desk, sitting, listening to the teacher, writing stuff down. Okay. But then like I needed that hands-on learning because that's how I learn. And so coming to the school, I was like, oh my gosh, everything can be hands-on learning. This is fantastic. And it really helped with student engagement and student bonding. And it was some of the relationships that I have with students here is just beyond what I've had at other schools. So yeah.
Good. So Mark and Torin, all educators want phenomenal relationships with their learners. And I see the foundation, I see relationships as a foundation for a successful education experience. And so both of you talked about phenomenal relationships within your learning environments. So what do you see from your perspective as a young person was the key to cultivating that culture?
For me, it was just stemmed into the school system. Our whole motto was about being unified. And I feel as though some teachers took that more in depth than others, but you really could tell which teachers would reach out and authentically want to have conversations with you. We had one teacher, Mr. Fiano, who would take his card out and play music in the hall, and he would, he would dance in the hall every morning. Just to get everyone excited for school. And he didn't have to do that, but he brought that energy into the classroom. And so everyone would say, if you get Mr. Fiano, you're lucky, you're lucky. And that was because he was authentically just a good person and he cared about the students and their well-being. And I feel as though when you have a teacher that cares first about the life of the student, then education comes second for them. I feel as though that allows the student to be able to strive to do better in that class.
For my school, this was actually, we had a very different start because when our school opened, it was just 9th grade. And then we added a grade every year. So that really helped with teacher connection because it was like, oh, there's not that many teachers the first year. So we got to know them really well because there wasn't anybody else. And they were really happy to talk to us. Like after school, we could stay with them and talk with them. And they would just be happy to have a conversation with you or to talk about life with you. And then as we got more grades added and more students and more teachers, it was because those connections are already there from the first year, just I think 80 students and few teachers that told the other grades that were coming in, yeah, we have strong connections with our teachers and they're more than happy to talk with you. So I think that really helped from its foundation.
All right. Well, thank you each for sharing your unique learning experiences and journey and how that has shaped you to be the person you are today. This is a great entry point to our last question that I have for the panel before we open up potentially for some audience Q&A. And that is in regard to your hopes about the future of education at large. So some people have said that the goal is to get education back to normal. Should we aim higher than that? You have a virtual room full of teachers, school and district leaders, change makers, and community leaders who want to change the future of education as we know it. What is your message to them?
All right, my picture's first, so I guess I'll go first. If we look at what has happened to the school system these past 2 years, we have to understand that we cannot go back. A system that was so easily destroyed cannot be the best possible option for students and for educators. Going back into the past is not a progressive approach, and now is the time to act as we're returning to a normal education system and with the billions of dollars being put into education. I think that really what it boils down to is we need to challenge our idea of what school is and start asking what it can be.
I think we should aim higher. We should aim much higher. I definitely came in through a tough year, definitely having an education COVID break, basically hurting my freshman year, but it's okay. No hate to COVID, but honestly, I never got the full high school experience just because definitely having some experience shut down because of the pandemic, but I I truly do not, I mean, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. I want to aim higher because though I may have not gotten a full high school experience, that shouldn't be a reason why we should aim lower and like make students, newcomers, make them feel like they're not welcomed and they're not involved because they came in through a tough year. I say that we should make them more involved and show them that like just because you're coming in through a rough year and it was a rough year for everyone, doesn't mean that we have to make you feel like you're not important because you are and everyone else is important as well. And that is very important as well because students should have the freedom to have their voice and have them shared and none of them should feel like it should be taken away from them.
For me, I've brought up this multiple times, just how much I've been appreciative and how lucky I've been to have fantastic teachers. Mr. Joyce, Mr. Ferrier, Mr. Fiano. These teachers brought out the best in you. And so I feel as though we need to, when we look to progress our education and the system in which we're learning, I want to have incorporations of technology. And I want to incorporate maybe more classes of life skills. But I feel as though the first and most important matter is to provide teachers with the correct education on how to use these and how to allow them to make the best use in their classroom, because it stems from the teachers. And if the teachers don't understand the way to set up a PowerPoint, then it's going to be hard for it to be communicated to students. And so that for me is the way I think we can look towards the future in these upcoming years.
All right. Well, thank you all for answering. Oh, go ahead, Torin.
Oh, sorry. What everybody else is saying, definitely aim higher. And I think the way that we can do that is student engagement. Just like I talked about earlier, students are the primary stakeholders of schools. So including them in the next steps of what happens for schools seems like the best choice because we're the ones that are here. And it did affect everybody. This last year, it did affect everybody very differently depending on their background. So just including students in the individual school, their school, and including them in the district and having them alongside the people that are making these decisions and work with them is just going to be so helpful. And it'll actually create change for both students and everybody involved.
All right. Well said by all of you. Powerful notes that you just noted on, Torin, being the last one to answer. And two things in particular. Zoey, I appreciate your comment on stop questioning what school is, and we should start questioning what it could be. This kind of reminds me of the question of that I always say is I stopped asking myself, am I smart, but am I smart? Or how am I smart, sorry. And then Mark, I appreciate you using your voice as a young person to also support educators. And I say that because this work will not be accomplished by just educators, by leaders themselves working in silos, but collectively working together in partnership. So thank you. I assume and I hope that they appreciate you taking that lens as well. So we have a few minutes open for audience Q&A, which is good. I'm glad we have some time built in for this. So I'm going to encourage everyone speaking to you audience members to please put any questions in the chat that you have for the panelists if you haven't done so already. I'm having a few sent to me. I hope we can get to as many as we can with the time we have left. It looks like we have about 10 minutes or so. And so with that being said, okay, we'll go up to the first question. This was through our actual panel discussion. Someone asked, how did your teachers help you to create your own driving questions during the process of your education experience? And any of you can answer that. In other words, I think this might be in the context of how did your educators help you take agency of your learning, ownership of your learning?
I feel as though that's a good question. For me, it came down to Mr. Joyce and Ms. LaFerrier in this situation. They really asked engaging questions. What do you want to do in life? What makes you happy? Do you enjoy this class? Do you not enjoy this class? Why? Is it the teacher or is it the material? And so these questions get your brain to think, well, I love physics, but my physics teacher was always kind of off-putting. And so maybe that's why I didn't enjoy the classroom. And so those driving questions were pushed with those leading bigger thoughts. And so I feel as though that is what allowed me to have a better understanding of what I wanted to do.
Good. I'm going to pick on you, Zoey, in particular, because this is really in regard to like the project-based learning piece, right? And so that is the essence of Iowa Big. And so I know you have to have some insight with being a recent graduate there.
Yeah, when we first picked our projects my first year there, they kind of just pitched a bunch to us and were like, you can choose one of these ones or you can do your own. And I chose one of the ones they did, and I chose my own, which was really scary, honestly, trying to come up with something to do by myself. But the teachers and Trace, the principal, I guess, really just asked me, they're like, what are you interested in? Like Mark said, what do you like doing? Because it can be different from everybody else in that room. Like you can have someone weird, niche, special interest. Like I love birds. And somehow I was able to do 2 projects my entire year, or my entire 2 years at Iowa Bigs, involving birds. And they helped me realize that that is, in fact, like that interest can become something more than just an interest, which I thought was just awesome.
I'll go next. So I think definitely the teachers that have supported me is my geometry teacher last year, Mr. Rajwani. Definitely, I would always come to him for advice. Definitely, always looked up to him, and I would always tell him about what I've always wanted in my life, and he would always ask me. He would always ask me these questions to make sure that I was always committed to what I wanted, and I would always tell him like all the dreams and hopes I've had. And when he would question me, and he always told me to do what makes me happy, that definitely helped a lot. And when he always asked me those questions, he always made sure that I was 100% committed for everything that I've ever wanted. And when doing that, I was always 100% committed to everything that I've ever done and I would always go to him. I still go to him sometimes, talking to him about everything, just because I do like to hear his questions and how he supports me in everything, which is a tremendous thing that I'm incredibly grateful for.
To add on to what they're saying, from my experiences, it was like my example earlier, the homeless project, the unhoused project. It was, all right, we're going to do this topic, but now here's all the different ways that you can explore it. There's so many different routes. So then you got to choose which one can you connect to the most? And then that's the one that most times you can take ownership over, because it's like, this is connecting to me, and this makes it more powerful because you have that connection. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you I do want to answer this question. You have all had amazing high school experiences. What would you say could have been done differently in your elementary experiences to make it better? We've been talking a lot about in the context of high school, and I know there are educators in the audience that are in middle school and elementary, and so I want to allow them some insights as well. And I know this was many years ago, so try to dig deep.
I think that's a great question, actually. I think for elementary school, what would have been helpful is definitely having the collaboration, especially with other students. I think that was something that I wish was shown in elementary school, because sometimes when students don't have the collaboration, they don't seek out to go speak and make new friends because they're shy. And I think if we show students from a young age that collaboration is good and working with people is good. I know that we used to have a bunch of projects in elementary school that were just like little paper and stuff and those little Valentine's thing. I think that that's definitely something that will help students a lot, especially if they're very shy, and we can learn a lot from working with other students and collaborations, even if that's playing together on the playground or anything else.
I can, oh,
So you can go.
sorry. Okay. This is kind of speaking from experience. I know a lot of kids in elementary school sometimes are like above the average, like whatever the grade average is for like math or something. So when I was in 4th grade, instead of going to math class on Fridays, my teacher would send me out into the computer lab and I would create presentations on other things that I was interested in and then give the presentations the next week, which was that was like my favorite part of the week, hands down. It was a really cool way to like keep me engaged in my learning instead of sitting in a classroom with doing stuff I already knew how to do. If that can be implemented to other, I just know that that was like one of my favorite memories from elementary school, and that would be cool to see other people have that opportunity.
Yeah, I think that kind of stems into what I was going to say. I was going to talk about engagement and participation and how to make the classroom setting something that you don't dread in the morning. You want to go to class because, you know, you enjoy your teacher, or you want to go in class because you enjoy getting to do a certain activity. Having a reason why you enjoy learning can be influential, because these are the first years you're starting to get into education. And so it starts a path for the rest of your middle school, high school, college. This is the beginning. And so I feel like this is the time to form the love for, you know, a lifelong learner, if you will.
For myself, thinking back, I attended 3 different elementary schools and they were all very different. But thinking back, I'm like, oh wow, all of my classmates and all the grades that I witnessed, they were all very creative and still are very creative. And so the last elementary school that I went to was centered around arts and performance and painting and just all of the arts. And it was a lot of fun because it was so much creativity, and it was, oh, I made a mistake. Well, then 5 different kids would be like, oh, you can now change it to this and this and this. And it was a very welcoming environment. And it was, the staff and teachers helped a lot with cultivating this creativity and this positive place where students just got to grow and learn along with everybody.
All right, and this is quite an open-ended question to end our audience Q&A on, and that is, what was the most valuable learning experience you had? And I might add to that, how was it achieved? And what was the self-fulfillment that you got out of that project?
So the project that sticks with me the most would probably come out of my AP government class. But not necessarily, let me rephrase it. The most influential thing that I did was in my AP government class. A couple of the students were very politically active and wanted to go to an event or a rally. And so our teacher went about the classroom teaching us how we could get more active in protests or in different areas, and how historically this has been done. And she did this after class, and she set up a group, and that not only led to us going out, but also we formed a voting registration group, and we ended up helping get people more active within our school system. And this really just formed a better understanding of what government does and how you can actually make a change. You just have to put your mind to it. So this is something that was inside and outside of school, which I find to be real life in a way, which is what school I believe should be teaching you for.
I would say that my biggest learning experience, my senior year at Iowa Big, I was on a project, basically myself for most of the year, I would say like 2/3 of it, where I was helping my city become a recognized bird-friendly city by the Trees Forever Council. And a lot of it was event planning, and I had never done event planning before. So as a senior in high school, trying to make a city a recognized bird-friendly city, you can imagine there was a lot of mistakes along the way. And I know one of Iowa Big's thing is learning from mistakes. But when I was on my other projects, it was a big group. So like if we made a mistake, it was everybody was making the mistake. Everybody went down with a mistake. But when it's just you on the project, it's kind of terrifying when you make a mistake because you can't blame anybody else. Like it's you all the time. And I think that was probably my best learning experience, was learning how to take accountability for everything and how to be responsible for something that is my own passion and my own interest, but also it's involving other people at the same time. That was like, it was like getting hit in the head with a brick, but I'm glad that it happened.
I think one real life project that has helped me in general was last year. My first big project was in my business and digital design class, and we had to create a poster or a video or whatever we would like, basically explaining the safety of swimming. And we worked with I think it was the Orlando Health team, I think I want to say. I remember. And definitely it was my first project doing alone, and I made a poster because I am a swimmer, and I know that this was very important to me and very dear to my heart about making a poster about the safety of swimming. And when doing that, I got a lot of feedback on my project, which was something that I needed, and I learned how to receive feedback, how to take it into consideration, and it was a real life project. I mean, a real life experience that I got, getting feedback, especially from the Orlando Health team and from Sci-Hi teachers. Definitely having that feedback has helped me in the real life, and it's definitely going to help me every single day for the rest of my life. And it was a project that I could never forget about because it came out really great in the end, and I wouldn't change it.
I think my biggest project is one that I'm currently still working on, which we started, me and two of my classmates started 2 summers ago. And it's a system, it's called Super Advocates, and a system made for schools to combat injustices in our schools and connect our individual schools with schools in our district and connect it with the districts. That way students actually can create change and can be a part of that change. And of course, our launch was during the COVID school year. So it was like, oh man, we're all virtual. This is really hard. But because of that challenge tossed at us, it actually really strengthened our team, and it really reinforced what our mission was. And that, yeah, we want to make an impact for students, and we want to make sure that students are safe when they do come back to school.
All right. Well, thank you all for taking audience Q&A, and thank you to the audience for submitting those questions. And just like that, we have come to the end of our panel discussion. So before I invite Susan back to the virtual stage, I just want to extend a huge thank you to our incredibly insightful panelists. You without a doubt, are wonderful leaders, and your voice is so important in this work to create an educational experience that unleashes the unbound potential of each learner. So to our audience members, thank you for being here. I hope today's panel brought you new learnings, insight, and inspiration. This work is hard, but it is imperative. And I hope that the symposium shows you that you don't have to do it alone, and in fact, you are not. So thank you for working to transform our education system to meet the needs of all of all learners across our country. But our conversation doesn't have to stop there. I invite you to continue this conversation by texting student to 72, I apologize, text student to 724-665. In other words, just dialing school on the dial pad to learn more about XQ Learner goals. And there will also be resources provided on a slide shown here shortly that we hope you find useful in your work. So thank you all again. Please still stay well, and until next time. So thank you. Susan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jemar. Please join me in thanking Jemar, Zoey, Mark, Daniella, and Torin for sharing your stories and experiences with us today. We deeply appreciate you. And throughout the event, I also want to deeply thank all of the people who have joined us, who've been here. On what's possible, each one of us is a change maker, and your contributions have helped shape the field. Creativity comes from bringing together these seemingly disparate ideas and creating a whole that is bigger than the sum of its parts. So thank you all for your participation, your contributions to build a brighter future for all learners. And at Aurora, before you go, we value your feedback, and please take our 1-minute survey. We'll drop that into the chat box momentarily. I just want to call out one thing too. Today, Youth Truth released a new study with the headline, "Student Feedback During COVID is Inspiring Schools to Do High School Differently." Two themes emerged from these findings. And one is that students are having a hard time. They're having limited access to challenging, relevant, personalized learning experiences. So the work that you do every day to create these challenging, relevant, personalized learning experiences is so important. And I just want to give everyone a huge thanks and inspiration for all of the work that you do every day in your communities. Thanks again to our student panel. We're taking these truths, so we humbly will move forward and work to catalyze change at all levels. And I just have to say thank you to our team at the Aurora Institute, especially Natalie Slocum, Loretta Goodwin, the rest of the Aurora team, Desiree, Zorana, Fred. Thanks to CF&A for all of the behind the scenes support and work that goes into this event. Shannon, Jackie, and others who have helped us get the word out. To our philanthropic partners and sponsors, thank you for your support and making our collective work possible every day. And just finally, to all of the attendees and amazing presenters for sharing, for building knowledge together. We are all learning. To our educators and youth, families, guardians, students, this is dedicated to you. We are all learners, and we are all learning together. So take what you've learned over the past 3 days and be the change you want to see. We're here to help collectively achieve the vision of a learner promise. We're here in service with you and in your leadership. Thank you. Best wishes in your journeys. This concludes our 2021 event. Take care and be well. Bye-bye.